up, everybody? What's going on? This is Devin Thomas back with another episode of Unscripted. Wow. It's funny. Last week I started off talking about kind of my predictions on the award ceremonies this year, like the Oscars and obviously the Globes and the SAG awards that already happened. And look, I'm not even like the biggest award show guy, but there were some interesting films that I was already following that were making their way. I mean, even Anora, obviously, we're going to talk about that. That was a front runner. But I mean, I'd had my eye on that before just because I was following Sean Baker's work. And when it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, I was very happy to see that because America needed that win. Like in just the cinema world, it was something that was, I don't know, it really kind of showed the state of what America's feeling in terms of filmmaking. And I think it was so important that it did win the Palme d'Or at Cannes. But now that moving forward to these awards this season, when it was started sweeping, I really I kept telling everybody, it's like, if Sean Baker wins this fucking award, or any Oscars for that matter, this is really gonna, shatter the glass ceiling of independent cinema again, which is, exactly what happened. If you guys tuned into the Oscars, which was actually it was a clean show. I really appreciated it. I thought Conan O'Brien was fucking hilarious as usual, and they should put him back on TV. Just saying, he's great. But yeah, Anora fucking swept. Even bigger and better than I think anyone could have imagined. We're not talking just best director or best editing. He won best director, best editing, best original screenplay, best picture. Mikey Madison won the best actress. And then on top of that, just, I don't know, it's monumental for indie cinema. It's a big deal. It's making waves. It was really just exciting to see. Sean Baker also had a phenomenal acceptance speech. He had a few, but I don't remember what it was for. I think it might have been original screenplay or directing. Tarantino brought Sean Baker out the Oscar, and Sean Baker had some nice sentiments to talk about just the theater and actually going into movie theaters to see films, and how when we were younger, especially I don't know what the cap is for the generation that's really not going to theaters and growing up and seeing movies, but I was part of the generation where it's like, if you wanted to see something, you went to the fucking theater. That's the only way you could see it, because we're talking pre-streaming, maybe on demand if you had Comcast or something, but our family was just it was too new at the time. I remember people were like, you don't buy a fucking movie on TV, you go and see it. So anyways, I digress, but I think it was important that he talked about going back to the theater, and Anora's out now in theaters. On that note, is making even another run despite having been out last year. And clearly, if the right things in theaters, people will go and see it, and the movie can live where it needs to be, which is on the big screen ultimately. And I think it's just really cool he kept that in mind. Another full circle moment, I saw that he had his film playing. I think it was the Vista, or maybe it was New Beverly, but I think it was Vista or something that Tarantino owns in LA. And it was like, well, that's just a cool fucking moment. Sean Baker went from I wouldn't say indie nobody, but in the last 5 years, he's truly gained some steam in terms of not just oh, he made the iPhone movie, because that was a big deal at Tangerine. People talked about him the iPhone movie guy, and it was groundbreaking at the time, for sure. It was fucking, no one else was doing it. He was the first guy to really capitalize on that. But he's just so much more than that now, and I think it's cool that, like I said, it's just a big win for indie cinema and other filmmakers that are trying to go out there and do something on a smaller scale with a smaller crew. I just like to fucking fire up for myself, and I'm sure millions of other aspiring filmmakers out there. So it's just a cool fucking thing. And also Mikey Madison, just, good for her. She's young. She took a really big, she's very brave. She took a big risk trying to make a movie like this. It's highly sexual. There's a lot of elements that, people might be uncomfortable doing on camera. As explicit as the movie may have been, it never felt like it was in poor taste. It just felt, true to life. There's an element of realism that was greatly appreciated, I think, by obviously the movie speaks for itself, the awards, all that, but as my personal opinion, just watching it, it's just wow, all the actors for that matter, everyone really took a risk to just be completely invested, and I think it was appreciated. Well deserved. Another movie I want to talk about is Flow. I don't know if a lot of you have seen it yet, but I hadn't seen it until it won the Oscar, and I'm glad it did, because it put it on my radar, and it ended up being on HBO, or whatever we're calling it now, Max. And what a cool movie. I don't know if you guys know the story. I guess this Latvian filmmaker made this entire movie in Blender for free, which is, I've been saying this a lot. People doing independent cinema, even independent animated cinema like this, this is Hollywood's biggest nightmare or it's their greatest opportunity, because you are going to have people that are just, they're not going to take no for an answer. I'm one of those people. We're going to figure out how to make a movie, make the right thing, and get over those Hollywood walls and through the gates one way or another. So I kind of talked about this last week too. Like, you guys could wait 10, 20 years to get in, business with the new talent, or you guys can capitalize on it now. I think this kid who made Flow, he's set. He beat Pixar as far as I'm concerned. He beat Disney. He beat all the giant companies already doing animation in this space, and it's disruptive. What can you say? It's Best Animated Feature Oscar. It speaks for itself. I think it's a big wake-up call. And I think that's even, I don't know if last week my episode was called Wake Up Call, but I mean, it goes right into what I've been talking about lately. There is a shift in, I wouldn't even call it power dynamics in Hollywood, but in who's going to be actually producing content people want to see. Maybe it's the originality element, maybe it's just new voices. But yeah, I've been kind of like, talking about this a lot, and I think it's starting to manifest just beyond just what I'm thinking, but I'm seeing it reflected in the, world of Hollywood, the world of filmmaking. Independent cinema is alive and well, and is truly catching fire right now, and it's just so exciting. I'm really excited to just be a part of that. So anyways, aside from the Oscars, I had a great time watching it. I also, one last mention on the Oscars, Kieran Culkin. Yeah, he did take home that statue for Best Supporting Actor. It's well deserved. I loved Real Pain. I have zero bad to say about it. My top 3 movies, I think I've said this, were Anora, The Apprentice, and A Real Pain. So Kieran Culkin winning, I nothing bad to say, but I did think Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn in The Apprentice was probably, I just think they're two different animals. I really wish he would have won personally, but I think both were well deserved. I wish we could let them both win. I know it sounds like a pussy thing to say, but it's the truth. They're both really great. I also thought Sebastian Stan as Donald Trump was phenomenal. He played one of the most controversial people in the world. It's hard to take on a role like that given the political climate, and just putting himself out there in that light and doing, scenes or things in the movie that could just upset people. I mean, I'm sure he got a ton of fucking shit in Hollywood for trying to do a role like that, and I understand why, but I respect the hell out of him for going up there and doing it and embracing it and trying to give us a, an honest version of Donald Trump per se. But, the movie's controversial by nature. I don't think anybody approved of that story being told in the way it was told. Certainly probably not Donald Trump, because it didn't make him look great, but it's going to end up being a cult classic. It'll be one of those movies people talk about in fucking 20 years. They'll be like, who is this guy? What was this all about? And, yeah, I think Ali Abbasi's director. I heard he had some Me Too type shit going on, so I'm not going to speak on him like as, oh, he's some great guy, because I have no fucking idea who he really is. But as a filmmaker, I thought the movie was pretty damn good. It was it was an interesting film, and the fact that it got Oscar attention, I think that once again it speaks for itself, because I saw it with the mindset that, like, I don't know, this could just be like a political thing, like a football or whatever they call it, and then I watched it, and it was so different than I thought, and it just as much as it was about the people, it was really just about ideas, and it was very interesting. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest all 3 of those movies I mentioned, Anora, A Real Pain, and The Apprentice. Go watch them. This week I did get to catch up on some stuff. I'll talk a little White Lotus later, but I don't know, did anyone see these movies? I just saw Companion. It was pretty cool. It's like an AI movie. I guess the setup is like kind of this guy, it won't ruin anything, but this guy has, or if I do say some spoilers, fucking cover your ears, kids. Companion, it's this guy goes to a lake house with his girlfriend for the weekend, and while he's there, his girlfriend almost, she gets like in a situation where she's being seduced by like the homeowner that's not her boyfriend, and there ends up being like a murder. And it turns out the girl is like an AI bot. She's kind of like a girlfriend bot, but like he calls her like a fuck bot or a sex bot, and she has no idea that she is this thing. And the mystery kind of unfolds from there. He kind of like, it'll explain in the movie, but like, yeah, he modifies her a little bit to make her capable of doing that, because these robots, given the laws of robots and shit, aren't supposed to be able to do that. So I don't know if you ever saw like I, Robot, it plays a lot off of like Isaac Asimov's kind of like philosophy. I think everything does. He's like the godfather of AI, and how robots would react and stuff too, or like the laws that they'd have to abide by and the construct that would make them work. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. I actually ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would. Coming from a screenwriter point of view, there was some predictability, but like look, it's entertainment at the end of the day. I'm not here to fucking pick it apart. I was entertained. I had a good time watching it. It's a little different, you know. I don't remember the director's name, but it was cool, and I'm going to keep an eye out for anything else he does. I thought he did a great job. Another movie I watched that had some Oscar attention this past week was September 5, or September 5th, however you want to say it. They put 5, so I'm not seeing the TH. But it was about like the Munich terrorist attacks. There's really no spoilers here. It's, if you know about the event, you know how it ended. It didn't end great. But it was cool. It kind of focuses in on a certain point of view, and the point of view they decided to take in this film was from the point of view of the ABC news team inside the ABC studio. And it was just interesting to see how they depicted these guys that were just covering the Olympics. They were sports. They were not the, breaking news type people. And they were interviewing athletes and stuff, and this one morning they wake up and there happens to be, a shooting inside the Olympic camp where they're at. Like, they're front and center for the games. And they really don't think much of it at the time, but they, they positioned themselves well to cover this story. And if you know how the story goes, unfortunately, a lot of like Israeli athletes were taken hostage. Some were murdered on site, but they ended up trying to extract them to, like, the typical terrorist. I want a plane. I want to go to the fucking airport and fly out to my country. I'm done with the attack. I've made my statement. Well, in the movie, the guys really, like, they're covering it as good as they can for not being the, main news people at ABC, just the sports people. They're usually covering fucking basketball and whatever, track and field at the Olympics. It shows they do the best job they can, and they have no idea how well it's being received, but they're the only people in the world with this feed inside the camp, and they're sending an auxiliary crew out to the airport where all the drama is going on, and they end up capturing the horror of the night. I think most of the athletes, the Israelis and the Palestinian terrorists, I believe they all end up dying in the end because the German police force or whatever, their military comes in and they get in a shootout, and those things don't end well typically, and historically this did not end well. But at the end of the movie, it kind of tells you, this was like the most viewed thing on television, like 900 million viewers the first time a terrorist attack had been on the air. And it's just funny that the naivety of like the people recording it, they're just like, hey, well, we're the only ones with it, we may as well cover this to keep like people informed and let our viewers see what's going on, because they're it's a big story at the end of the day. And it kind of shows you even the moral dilemma. Do we keep leaning into this as like, this is a great story, or are we doing the right thing covering it? Because I don't know, you got to watch the movie. I don't want to ruin it for anyone, because my broad strokes explanation of it, I think, will be enough for you just to watch it with the original integrity and intent of the film there. But yeah, there's that little morality tale too of like media and how they depict things, especially the like sensationalization or whatever you want to call it of news. People can definitely lean into exaggerating things to make it feel like it's a bigger story, or they get hungry to keep the story going. And kind of like how like the news plays on fear. I feel like that, we've experienced that heavily in the last 10 years. The news has just gotten so different, and I feel like it just doesn't matter what side you're on. Like, all news has gotten like to the point where like fear is kind of the center of the message, and fear motivates people to act emotionally, in my opinion. And it's kind of like, just keep your head on straight, no matter what your political beliefs are. Just, you should always take everything with a grain of salt. Do your own research, be informed. I think it's the most important thing you can do as a human in general, even with filmmaking. You know what? You might hear advice that's bad. Take it with a grain of salt. Go out, get experience, and decide for yourself. Somebody might say they hate this or that, and you might try that piece of gear and be like, this gear's fucking sweet, So, but anyways, this is another tangent aside from like that movie. But yeah, September 5, check it out. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so this week I've really been working on, I've been doing some redrafts of Feel It All Around. I've really been trying to just perfect like the first half of the movie. I don't know if you guys have been following along, but basically Feel It All Around is my next feature. It's going to be shooting this month. I'm doing about the first 40 pages because the first 40 pages of the script take place in Los Angeles, and we're going to try and shoot as much as we can of that as quickly as we can, and then move forward on getting into the next part of the movie, which takes place in San Jose. So it's kind of easier that way in the sense that it's being split in half, but it's also a little bit more, just, it's like a planning thing, which I actually don't mind this. My first movie, Peninsula Nights, was kind of shot the same way, where it was like one half took place on one night and then the next half took place on another evening. You got to check it out. But yeah, so knowing that, it gives me a little bit, it doesn't look like I'm shooting like 100 pages. It's like, okay, we're shooting 40. Like, that's pretty doable. And we'll do this scene here this day and that scene there this day. And oh, that scene might be like 5 pages, but it's 5 pages just them kind of having a conversation. We might be able to shoot those 5 pages and then move on to something else that day. So I've talked about Peninsula Nights quite a bit, but the first film I made had an 8-month shooting period just due to like life, and it's the first movie, you know, we didn't have all the resources to go out there and shoot it for 2 or 3 weeks straight. You know, that'd be great, but this time around I'm trying to make, you know, a few movies a year, so you got to tighten up the schedule, and I think that's something that I've really been focusing on. Like, I'm not even going to start until I'm like, okay, we got this figured out, which I think is prudent, and I think it's also going to benefit not just myself but the actors. It's not going to be like, hey, like, this sounds so silly, but like on the first movie, even Stephen Ray Thomas, the lead actor, he had to have his hair cut the same way for, you know, almost 8 months straight. There was just, and thankfully there's a split halfway through this 8 months where he got to change his hair for the next evening, so it showed a little passage of time. But holy shit, you know, it's a commitment for them. You also got to, you know, you got to stay in the same shape you're in. You know, I'm not saying anyone's gaining pounds, but like, you know, you want to look good on screen. A lot of the time we do a nice little cut during the, you know, filming time and eat healthy and, you know, just, you know, let's say this, we're not having pizza on the weekends, but fuck, you know, I respect the hell out of them for doing it, and we're not going to put anyone through that this time. We're going to all be able to get this done in a reasonable amount of time so we can take a break after and just enjoy ourselves, living our lives, you know, how we normally do. But yeah, so feel it all around. I've been really, like I said, perfecting that first half, the Los Angeles half of the movie. I've had a lot of DMs on casting. If you're listening to this, yeah, we're going to be casting probably local as well as Los Angeles. There's a few scenes in LA that are exterior. We're going to actually try and shoot most of the movie in Monterey County just because we have so many more resources here, which will be really great. I've already talked to some people about getting locations and setting that up. And if you're interested, I have the feelitallaround@gmail.com, or it might be feelitallaroundmovie@gmail. It's on my Instagram. So if you go to my Instagram bio and you find @feelitallaround in the bio, you can go from there and check out the Feel It All Around Instagram, and there's the email on all the marketing materials to get, you know, casting, location call, etc. So that'll be really cool. I'm very excited to get that started. I just ordered a little bundle of gear. I'm starting to, you know, have to take on the burden of actually paying for the movie, but it's all good. But yeah, so the gear's on the way, and that's when, like, you know, it's almost like I keep joking. It's like being a vulture circling in the sky, and there's like a carcass on the ground, and you're just waiting to go down and, like, you know, pick it up and fly off, I guess. I don't know, just kind of like, you know, we're circling in per se. And that's a good feeling because I'm kind of getting back in movie mode. Like, even when I'm watching movie, I've been watching so many more movies even this week. You know, another movie I watched was Ides of March, this George Clooney, like, political drama. It's cool. It's like the Ryan Gosling plays a guy, and he's helping a Democrat campaign for like a primary to be president. He's not actually running against like a different candidate. He's just trying to beat out the other Democrats in his primary race. And I hadn't seen it, and it was just really, really good. But even watching it, I'm like, well, it's George Clooney's in it, and he's directing it. And I'm like, like, I started thinking, like, what was he thinking when he was doing this scene? Because he's not only in it, he's also making the film. And you start thinking about choices, and why did he do that? There's a scene where they go to like a club, and he opens up the scene with him focusing on this woman singing jazz. And I'm like, he really wanted to show this. Like, I'm like, because, like, I don't know, because it's him. I'm thinking he's not only in it, he's making it. And he chose to have like this woman singing jazz, and then cutting to Ryan Gosling and this other girl. And then even to exit the scene, he cut back to him. Like, it was important for him at this point in his career to have this scene with this lady singing jazz. And that's something I like sometimes when you're not getting ready to go into making a movie. You're kind of like, fuck it, like, the lady singing jazz. But I started thinking about choices, and this is a little bit more about directing, I guess, in that sense. But like, that's what I'm talking about, what I even started the statement with. My mind is getting into director mode. I'm starting to think about, what choice am I going to make when I get onto set? And I think a lot of filmmaking, especially directing in particular, after the screenplay's done and you're pretty much committed to what you got and you're there, a lot of directing is making decisions, and it's making choices quickly or that are going to best serve it. One thing I got to say about directing, you compromise a lot. You're going to compromise every fucking time you go out to shoot. And it's the nature of the beast. You want it a certain way. You fight as hard as you can to get it the way you imagine in your head. And if you have to change it on the dime, then you got to do it. But you got to try and imagine how you can make that change on, the drop of a hat. The best change you can fucking make it, and roll with the punches. Because if you get caught up on like the little things, like it's just not exactly how I imagined or whatever, you're gonna be spinning your fucking wheels. I can tell you right now, I know so many people are like, I need X amount of dollars to make a movie. I need this and that. And it's like, dude, you don't. You gotta fucking, if you're watching this clip or listening to this right now, you're probably listening to it on your fucking iPhone. You got $1,000 camera right in your hand. I made a ton of fucking short movies on my iPhone before we went out and made a feature film. Also, before that, I'd used Red and every fucking brand of camera under the sun. The nicest glass, all that shit. I went back to the iPhone to practice. It does not matter. You can make something really good on the iPhone, and if you really want to get seen, just pick that up and start going to town, But yeah, I think, like I was saying, when it comes to that, that's even a decision to make. To go out and get your iPhone out and go and film something, you got to be good at making decisions. You got to know when to pull the trigger. You got to know when to push. You got to know when to pull. It's a lot of decision making, directing. It sounds obvious, but you're not just dictating what's going on. You're also like accepting that somebody's going to you're going to say like, hey, let's try it this way or try it that way. You're going to be like accepting like, this might be how this needs to go. Because I'll give you an example. In Peninsula Nights, we were making the scene with the cougar. If you've seen the movie, you probably know this scene. It was supposed to be them in a cab originally, like pulling up to this light, and they're stopped and they see a cougar and a younger man on a bench, and they make out or whatever, and they like make a comment about it, like, oh, look at that, like the age difference, right? Well, what's funny is that in the movie, we ended up shooting it different where they're walking. And the reason I wanted it in a cab is like, oh, they're gonna be traveling kind of a big distance, but fuck, them walking down the street, like people, they make up the travel time in their heads. So it ended up working out better to just have like Stevie and Christine walking down the street and just showing up on the corner and seeing them like on a bench while they're waiting for the light to change to walk across. Same context, same thing, that was a decision that was made like literally on the spot. At the time I was like, well, maybe we'll get a car. And I started thinking about it. It was just so fucking busy, even for like a dead night in Monterey. And it just, it ended up being the better decision. Stevie even suggested, he's like, hey, like, why don't we just ditch the car and do this? And like, I'll walk down. And I was like, okay, I can see it. That, I get it now. I'm going to just pan down with you guys. And if you watch the movie, you'll understand the psychology of what we were talking about at the time. But that's a decision that comes through collaboration and understanding of the material. We all knew it just as well. We all knew what we needed to do. And the decision ultimately came down to me to make the decision, because I could have, been like, I absolutely believe this needs to be in a taxi cab. But like, a good suggestion is a good suggestion. Take it if you get it. That comes down to, once again, even making a good decision on taking good advice. So listen to your crew, listen to your actors, listen to everybody, and then try and make the decision for yourself in the end. It's not easy to do, and it can be annoying, but at the end of the day, like, you are, if you're a director especially, you're in charge to some extent you definitely are in charge. You're in charge of final, like, say, but, do it without an ego, do it without the mentality of I'm right and they're wrong. If you believe that you're right on something, or you just flat out fucking no, great. But then if you end up being wrong, you just admit it, own up. Yeah. I did say I was going to talk about White Lotus. I haven't really gotten a chance to talk about it. I don't know if you guys have been following White Lotus. We're on episode 3 of season 3. Episode 4 is out tomorrow. In episode 3, a lot of my predictions once again came true. I'm not saying I'm fucking Nostradamus over here, but hey, I've been on point. White Lotus season 3, episode 3 rather. It was really good. The plot thickens. I predicted, I think in episode 1, that Belinda would recognize Greg, or as he's going by in the season, Gary. In episode 3, she literally brought it up. She's like, I saw this man here. He looked just like this guy that dated this client I had, Tanya McQuaid. And she was kind of bitching about how Tanya had left her high and dry in season 1. Like, she gave her a fat cash tip, but didn't follow through on actually helping her start her spa. Sure enough, she brings it up to this guy, Porn Chai, that she's been hanging out with. This guy's into her too, but he's like the Thai host that's helping her out at the White Lotus while she trains with their masseuse program. And she actually goes up to Greg, or Gary, as he's going now in this episode, and confronts him and says, did you used to date Tanya McQuaid or know her? And he flat out fucking denies it. You could tell he was uncomfortable with her asking, and I don't know. I think like a lot of that season is going to come down to Belinda and Greg, or Gary, getting in like some sort of shootout. I kind of explained this on the podcast before, but in episode 1 of season 3, there's this cold open with a shootout, and the son, Zion, Belinda's son, it's, implicated. you know, kind of like is worried about his mom during the shootout. And it's like, why would he even say that if it's not, he didn't, you know, have some understanding that her mom might feel worried that there's somebody out for her, or perhaps Greg/Gary is going to try and take her out. There's also a moment when she gets back to her hotel room after confronting him at dinner where there's like creaking in her like closet, and she kind of looks over there, and it's inconclusive about what happens, but I'm assuming nothing good, you know. So anyways, that's been fun to kind of predict. On everything else, like, I don't really have any major predictions. I guess here's another prediction. Walton Goggins' character, I can't remember his name, I think it's Rick, but he is he's been going to therapy sessions in the film with this Indian woman. I can't remember her name either, but she's kind of like the in-house therapist, and he admits that his father was murdered when he was young, and it's kind of implying that because he's been trying to get like the owner of this White Lotus in Thailand, he's been kind of like trying to be like charming to the wife. In this episode, he goes up to her and tells her how, oh, like, I think you look like a movie star. I saw you singing at the hotel last night. And I guess the wife of the owner of this White Lotus in Thailand used to be kind of like a famous Thai celebrity, and now she's married to this other guy, and I can't remember his name. He's like some white guy, but I think the implication is that Walton Goggins is trying to butter her up to get closer to her husband, and her husband might be the guy that killed his father. These are once again predictions, but I think he might be trying to take her out. He kind of mentions how he has to go to Bangkok, and that's where she's headed, the wife of the guy he's suspected of killing his father. So he's like, oh, I'll meet you there, and like, we'll meet up with this film director. He tries to say he's going to try and cast her in something, but they have to meet in Bangkok. So it's almost like he has the information. He's just kind of baiting her in. And I think he's just trying to get close enough to fucking kill this husband. But anyways, I don't really have any other predictions than that. But I think that's all I got for this lovely Saturday afternoon. I'm going to go and make a fucking pizza and hang out. And I will talk to you guys all next week. Thanks for listening. I'm Devin Thomas, and this is Unscripted.